Hi everyone, this is Patrick Sedivy, and today we're going to talk about the calling tree. So, first off, I'd like to tell you a story about a friend of mine who owns a jewelry store. He sells mostly wedding rings, engagement rings, diamond rings, things like that. And he was telling me a story one time because I saw one of his employees and the tips of his fingers were like completely blackish, grayish green. I don't know if you know that color. It looks like an old tattoo. Think of you seeing an old tattoo on somebody that's had it for years and years. That kind of blackish, grayish, greenish color, right? So that's what you could imagine. So that's what his fingertips looks like, all of them, on this employee of his. And so I asked him, "What's happening? What's wrong with his fingers?" And my friend said, "Well, let me tell you a story." And then he proceeded to tell me about how this employee, what he does all day is he's the one that polishes all of the rings, he's the one that sets all the diamonds into the settings, he's the one that builds custom rings. So he's constantly, day after day, working with these gold rings. And he said, that's not dirt on his fingers, that's gold dust. And I go, wow, that's interesting. And he said, well, the really interesting thing is that what I do is I have a shag rug underneath this employee's desk. And every day, at the end of the day, very carefully, what I do is I sweep all that gold dust that's on his desk and on his table from working with these rings day after day, and I just very gently sweep it and let the dust fall into this shag rug. I'm like, you've got my attention. I'm fascinated. Then what do you do? And he says, well, what I do at that point is once or twice a year, I carefully roll up that shag rug and I put it into a big plastic bag that I seal. And then I take it over to a company that extracts the gold dust from this rug. I'm thinking, wow, that's really interesting. And he says, every time I do that, every year, I collect this gold dust out of this rug, and I get tens of thousands of dollars of gold out of this shag rug. Just from the dust, from polishing, adjusting, building, custom rings and all that. Just from all that, all there's gold dust that just would otherwise go to waste. And my friend was telling me this story as if he's really proud of it, proud of himself that he's so brilliant that he gathers this dust. And I think he is. I think he's brilliant to not let that go to waste, to have recognized that there's this source of gold that otherwise would have just gone to waste. I mean, you can't help that dust falling off as you're polishing and adjusting and building these rings. And so I think that he's absolutely brilliant that he just collected that dust. And what I want to tell you today about your organization is that you actually have a lot of gold in your organization right now. I mean, unless you're just barely starting and you don't have anybody in your organization, unless that's the case, you have gold in your organization right now and you don't even know about it. Let me tell you a story about one day when I decided to make a phone call to a lady. This was early on when we're building doTERRA, and I was just looking through my organization, and I noticed that this one lady, I'm going to call her Joey. Joey is not a really good girl name, is it? But it is a girl, so let's say Zoe. So Zoe, I'm just looking through this organization. I noticed that Zoe had like a personal order, and I'm not talking about her organizational volume. I'm talking about her own personal order of over 600 points. I thought that was kind of intriguing. I mean, if she owns a spa, perhaps, if she's a massage therapist, maybe. Um, but I just saw that she had that much volume, and I thought it was kind of odd. So I just picked up the phone and I gave her a call, and I said, "Hi, this is Patrick. I'm with doTERRA. I noticed that you really love the oils. I mean, you've been buying over $600 of product over the last couple months, each month. Tell me your story." Tell me what products you love best. And she proceeded to tell me a fascinating story. She said, I have MS, multiple sclerosis, and if you came into my body right now, you would have no idea that I have MS thanks to the oils. I'm like, really? What oils do you use? And she proceeded to tell me which oil she used and how it's helped her. And she went to tell me that she used to go do stem cell treatments down in Mexico before, but the travel, between the flight and hotel and the procedure itself to get those stem cell treatments was extremely expensive. And she said, I didn't have the money to do it. And so a friend of mine told me about these oils, and I decided to try using it. And so I started using the frankincense and peppermint and all these other products, including Lifelong Vitality and so forth. And she told me her whole protocol that she does on a regular basis, every day, every morning, evening, throughout the day, and so forth. But she said, I can't feel it. I can't feel the MS right now. I haven't had any flare-ups. I haven't had any problems with it in a while now. And so I was just flabbergasted. I'm like, again, this is early on in my experience in doTERRA. So that was the first time that I had an experience with something as severe like MS. And I told her, I said, Zoe, you need to tell your story to everybody that you could find that has MS. Think of how many people you could help. And she paused for a second on the phone and she said, Patrick, you're right. And all of a sudden, here's a person that was a consumer, was not building or sharing the product at all. She decided to build a business. She built the business. She started telling her story to people with MS and others, neighbors, friends, anybody she can think of. She was sharing the product and she was building, and she got to the rank of gold. And I think it's kind of fitting that we're talking about gold in your organization, because in her case, she literally was gold that otherwise would not have been found. And similarly to my friend who owns the jewelry store, unless I would have done something like picked up the phone and called her to see what her story was, I would have never known. I would have never known her story. I would have never invited her to build the business, and she would have never become gold. And that's thousands of dollars, tens of thousands of dollars of volume every month that have occurred in her organization, thanks to the fact that I picked up the phone and she was receptive to me, and we just had this conversation, and she decided to go and build a business. So in a similar way, you have gold in your organization that you don't even know of. And it's in the form of people that haven't decided to build a business yet. They're just consumers. Or perhaps it's in the form of people who enrolled, but the product is sitting in a drawer or on their shelf or on their table at home, and they've never opened it and never started to use it. And so they're not on LRP, right? So maybe you can get them to be on LRP. Maybe you can get them to host a class. And all of a sudden you gain some new customers and potentially sharers and builders through a class that they host. So there's a lot of value in the organization and in the people that you already have in your organization. And that's what this calling tree is about. It's about taking the time to occasionally, semi-regularly tap into this source of referrals, source of shares, source of builders, source of new people on LRP that already is in your organization. And so we're going to systematize this way. We're going to show you exactly how we do it so that you can regularly do these calling trees throughout your organization so you can capture that gold and just kind of help your organization become more solid. So let's talk specifically about what a calling tree is. Well, it's kind of what you imagine it to be. I mean, if you look at your organization as a tree, you can kind of see how it branches off. You might have, a few people on your front line, and then they have a few people under each of them, and they have people under them, and so it kind of just branches off. Maybe what you could do is imagine this like emergency response calling tree. Maybe some of you have had some experience with that, where your community has an emergency response, where maybe one person calls 5 people, and those 5 people have a list of 5 people that they're supposed to call, and each of those people have another list of 3 or 5 people, whatever. that they call, and so on and so forth, so that very quickly the news gets spread out of an emergency or a disaster to everybody in the community, and everybody's informed. Okay, so I mean, nowadays they probably do that less and less because you have technology that can help replace some of that. Um, for example, in Japan, they just use a text message that just blasts to everybody in the community if there's a earthquake or a tsunami threat. Well, the personal face-to-face or personal touch, in the form of a call, in our case, is much more effective than just a text message, with what I'm going to describe here. Now, there is definitely a time when a text message can be very useful to a group of people, but we're specifically talking about making personal phone calls to people within your organization. Now, maybe you've also experienced a calling tree, perhaps with your local school, with your elementary school. Maybe the Parent-Teacher Association has the calling tree to get information out to parents quickly. So you have somebody at the school that communicates with the Parent-Teacher Association, and each of those parents that are in that association will communicate to some of the other parents and so forth, and thus a message can get delivered very quickly. In our case, we're going to be communicating out to everybody in our organization, and we want to get that message out as quickly and as effectively as possible, and so we organize it in a similar way. Now, you cannot rely on people who are just consumers to get the message out. Why would they? They have no incentive, right? They have no reason why they should go and make even 5 phone calls to get a message about doTERRA out to other people. So who are the people that you're going to be able to engage in this calling tree? Well, it's your builders and your sharers, right? And you then need to just organize your calling tree event, your lists, in such a way that that it makes sense, so that each of the builders and sharers can get involved, and so that it's not too much of an overwhelming burden on any one person. Now, let's talk about reasons why you would want to do a calling tree before we get into the nitty-gritty of how to do it. So there's a number of reasons why you'd want to do a calling tree. The first and foremost that I'd like to suggest to you is to do wellness consults. Now, I know there are a number of you and maybe this is your case, where 95% of everybody in your entire organization that enrolls already gets a wellness consult because your leaders, your builders and sharers, you've trained them very, very well. And everybody does wellness consults immediately after somebody gets enrolled and gets their product. Whenever I ask people if they believe that 95% of their team, of all of the people that enroll on their team every month, get a wellness consult, usually there's one person out of a group of 70 or 100 people. So we're talking 1 to 2% of the people that really have been thorough and diligent about getting wellness consults done. Wellness consults are extremely powerful, a great way to get people on LRP. In fact, I think the best way to get somebody on LRP, and to really learn how to use their products so that they become a lifelong lover of essential oils that they're using and benefiting themselves and their family in a variety of ways for a long, long, long time to come. So wellness consults, extremely powerful way or extremely powerful reason to use a calling tree. So if you don't have that 95% people that are enrolling getting a wellness consult, I suggest that you use the wellness consult as a reason to do a calling tree. And we're going to give you today, I'm going to give you some of the scripts that you can use as you're calling through and talking to people about doing wellness consults. But let me talk about some other reasons why you might want to do a calling tree. Promotions. Let's say doTERRA is doing a 200 PV promotion. So far every year in December, doTERRA has had a frankincense promotion where if you buy 200 PV or more, you get a free bottle of frankincense. I think this is a fantastic reason. It's a great value that customers are getting. And so if you want to get the message out there to your people, doing a calling tree is a great way to do it. So maybe you can just plan. We don't know for sure that this coming December, there's going to be a 200 PV promotion, but we can plan on it because there always has been in the past. And And then at the last second, if they don't do it for whatever reason, then you could cancel that calling tree event if you like. But there's a really good chance that there's going to be such a promotion. So you could plan to organize a calling tree, and if that's the case, if it's for a 200 PV promotion that you're expecting or hoping the company does, you could plan it right at the very beginning in the first few days of the month to make sure that people can take advantage of that promotion with all of their purchases throughout the month. Another great reason to do a calling tree is if you're launching a continuing education program. Let's say you haven't been doing continuing education, and through the course of following the daily mentor calls, you've learned of the value and importance of doing a continuing education program, and you decide to do one within your team. Launching it using a calling tree is a great thing to do as well. You could also do a calling tree for major events like convention to boost attendance at convention or post-convention tours, or maybe some other regional events that are going on, or maybe one of your own events that you're doing if it's a major event. If you're doing it based off of localized events, I would just be careful to only call those people that are within a geographical region that would attend that event. You wouldn't be doing it as a whole organization, but rather for just that one region or local location. I hope that makes sense. So those are the main reasons why you would want to do a calling tree. You'd want to, you might want to come up with some of your own reasons, perhaps, or you might think of some of your own reasons. But some people often ask me, how often should I do a calling tree? Well, let me just put it to you this way. I'm sure none of you like being spammed by, whether it be by email or by voicemail, when you get a phone call and it's just an automated computer that's spamming you or whatever. Nobody likes that. I remember not long ago, my son was going to a private school, and the school was really wanting to make sure that parents are informed about everything that's going on at the school. So they would send out a newsletter every day. We literally got a newsletter from the school almost every single day of the school year. And in fact, there were some days where they sent out more than one. And one day I was in with just visiting the school, taking care of something for my son. And I stopped by the office and I was talking to the lady there. And I just happened to mention, because it was on top of my mind, I said, if your goal is to make sure that nobody reads your email newsletters, you're doing the right thing by sending emails every single day. And I think she kind of looked shocked when I said that. And the reality is, they were sending so many messages, I just turned it off. And the only reason why I didn't unsubscribe from the email is because I wanted to make sure that I had the ability to go and search through all of the emails from the school in case I was looking for something specific, just do a keyword search or whatever and see what I could find. Maybe a special trip that they're doing or whatever. And that's the only reason why I didn't totally unsubscribe from the school's newsletter, because it was super annoying and I didn't have time to read through all of these notes they were doing for all of the different grades, and it was just really annoying. You don't want to become annoying to your downline, to your team members, so don't overdo it. If you're making personal phone calls, I think I would recommend that you do it 2 to 4 times a year. Every quarter is doable. I definitely don't recommend more than every other month, so not more than 6 times per year. I think at that point, if you start doing it more than that, it becomes A, burdensome on your team members, because there's a substantial amount of effort that goes into doing these calling trees. B, for most people, it's not the funnest thing to do, is to sit there and make a bunch of phone calls to people one after another. And C, your team members, your consumers, are going to get annoyed and they're going to get sick of you calling, and if you do it too frequently. So you don't want that to happen. You don't want people to turn off and start ignoring you just because you do it too often. So just be aware of how often you're doing these calling trees. Don't overdo it, but make sure that you do go through and do it. Just like my friend with the jewelry store, couple times a year, he went through and He gathered the gold dust that was in his organization, well, in his organization, rather, in his rug, right? And for us, in our organizations, you want to do that at, 2, 4 times a year. Okay, now the other key thing to remember is you've got to make it fun. Like I mentioned just a minute ago, most people, it's not their funnest thing to do to just sit there and make phone calls. So make it a party. Make it so that your team members are excited to do this. If you just divvy up lists and say, okay, John, you call these 10 people, and Sally, you call these 15, and Rolanda, you call these 10, and whatever. Um, they might do it, they might not do it, they might make a few phone calls and then stop and get tired of it. Um, Again, make it fun, gather people together. The way we like to do it is we make it a party, usually on a Saturday. It's easiest to gather people together on a Saturday to make phone calls like that, plus a decent chance that you'll get a hold of the people you're trying to reach. Get together, have refreshments, make it high energy, giving each other high fives or maybe even having fun little prizes if, whenever they have a good call, or for the person who gets through to the most people or has the most wellness consults that are scheduled. Get creative, just have fun with it. You guys have creative minds. You can figure out something. Just make it fun. I always have people that ask me, what about if your team isn't close to you and you can't get together in your home or wherever, or in somebody else's home to do a party, a calling tree party? So how do you do it? And I said, well, even online you could do it. Just maybe do the party at your house. Those that are close to your house, you have come in. Those who aren't, you have them Zoom in with you so that you feel connected, and they're working on doing their calls, you're working on doing your calls, and when they have a good experience, they let you know, and you congratulate them, and you encourage them, and you can have a number of people that are connected like that online, and just so you could have this sense of community, this sense of something's happening together. And I think that makes it a lot more enjoyable, a lot more work gets done. And even if you don't get through your entire list at that time in the, let's say, 2 hours that you have set aside for doing a calling tree together, even if you don't get through to everybody, that's fine. At least you've gone through half or more than half, and you say, okay, guys, now you have a great start. Momentum's rolling. In the next couple days, will you finish off the rest of these lists? Whenever it's convenient to you to finish off, and that way the ball's already rolling. Once people have momentum moving forward, they're a lot more likely to complete something. The hardest part about doing any task is always at the beginning, getting it started, getting movement going in the first place. So that's what I recommend. Just make it fun, make it a party, and go to town. Now, the other thing that's really important is to prepare your lists in advance. So I'm going to get into these 4 categories that you see on the screen in just a moment. But before that, let me talk about how you break this down. So people often ask, well, how do I decide which list I give to whom? Well, I'm sure we've talked about and you've heard us talk about how the rank of elite is really a foundational rank in any organization. The other interesting thing is that somebody who's elite, generally speaking, has a manageable number of people in their organization to make calls. And so let's say somebody's an elite or maybe just under elite or whatever, and they're moving towards elite. You can take that, maybe they have 30, 40, 50 people in their team. That's manageable. If you have like 100 or more, then it gets really daunting and overwhelming, and nobody's going to want to do it. Often an elite will have maybe 1 or 2 other shares. So even if they do have, let's say, 50 people in their team, or if it's a little bit larger, the larger it is, the more shares they're likely to have. So they can also spread the workload between themselves as sharers or other builders that are underneath that elite. But generally, I break it down to the elite level. And so for every elite, I'll give them a list of here are your people to call. And that way it's not too overwhelming. Now, the people that are above them, let's say a premier or a silver that's above that elite, they might have some of their own people that they're calling as well. Let's say it's a premier, they might have another leg that they're starting to build and work on. So they might have some of their own, but they might have a little bit of additional resources. Let's say it's a silver that has 3 elites, right? And everything's nice, neatly organized into their whole team is in those three legs. So they have each of those three elites calling those organizations. Well, then that silver doesn't have anybody to call, right? Well, they can absolutely call, first of all, each of the people that they've personally enrolled, right? So if there's like maybe 10, 15, 20 people that they've personally enrolled within, scattered throughout those organizations, so they can extract those from each of the lists that are given to each of the elites. And they could say, I'll call the ones that I've personally enrolled because I have a personal relationship with them, and I'll leave the rest to you within each of your organizations. And then if that silver still has a little bit of added time, they can help whoever has the most calls to make out of those elites, and just make it lighten their burden a little bit so that the load is spread out a little bit more evenly. So I hope that makes sense, that you want to break it down to a smaller group. Each elite calls within their organization. If they have a share or two within there, they can spread the workload, preferably among each person calls their enrollees, the people that they've enrolled, and then as well as some other people, just to make sure that everybody gets called. The silvers above them can help call throughout their organizations. The platinums above can also help coordinate and make phone calls to some of the people, some of the elites that have the most calls to make, and so on and so forth. The higher up you go, you just kind of pick up and call your own enrollees plus a few of the others, just to help each person out a little bit, whoever's struggling to get all of the workload done. Okay, so that's kind of how you want to break it down. And then once you've printed off the list, I just go into the system and literally I'll zero in on an elite. Let's just say Sally is my elite person that I want to print her list off for her. When I go into the back office, into the virtual office, I will go to the detailed genealogy. And when I'm in the detailed genealogy, I can put in the focus ID. And so I would type in the ID number, the wellness advocate number for Sally. And then I would show all of her downlines. So there's one field where you can select how many levels deep you want to go. I always select 99. Like that, I make sure that I get everybody, right? Because I don't think anybody has as many as 99 levels deep in their organization. I don't, anyway. So I just put 99, and that way I know I have the whole organization, Sally's organization. So I focus on Sally. Focus ID is Sally's ID number of levels, 99. It gives me all of Sally's organization, okay? So I'll just print off that list. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to separate that list into 4 different categories. The first category is people who are on LRP. Second is people who are buying occasionally, but they're not on LRP. And third is people who have an LRP template in the system, but for some reason it's not processing. Their card is declining or expired or something like that. And the fourth category is people who haven't purchased at all in the last 3 months. So as far as we can tell, they haven't purchased in a long time. Okay, so those are the 4 categories. Now the other question is that you might have is, what do I show on the list? When I print off the list, what are the columns that need to appear? Okay, so here's just a sample list, bunch of Chinese names so that nobody knows who's calling. So for sure, when you print off the list, you'll need the name because you'll need to know who you're addressing. You'll need the phone number. I just deleted the phone numbers out of this list just so as not to compromise private information. You also want to have the column next LRP. You'll also want to show the column the next LRP PV, so that shows you how much volume they have on LRP every given month. Then you want to show the volumes for the last 3 months, right? So usually one of them is the current month. In this case, I always have my current month on the end, so that's month C for me. So their personal volume and their OV. So PV is their personal volume, OV is their organizational volume. But you want to have this for each of the last 3 months. So the current month, last month, and the month before. All right. So those are really just all the columns that you need in order to do a calling tree. You print off the list, and then when you're dividing it into the 4 categories, like I was describing to you, I take a highlighter, 4 different colors, and I highlight each of those rows, each individual on the list, with a different color based off of how they fit into these 4 categories. So first of all, generally I pick green, just because green means go, right? everything's good, everything's up, everything's positive. So green to me means they are on LRP and they're buying product every month, okay, on LRP. So their LRP is processing and everything's all good. So here I highlighted them for you. So this first one that you can see in green, you can see based off of the next LRP column that they have an LRP scheduled. So that's telling you the date of their next LRP. Obviously this list was done a while ago, 2017. Then next LRP PV shows you how much they're ordering on LRP every month. So here you have 100 PV, it's scheduled for every month. And if I go to month A, I could see that in month A they had a 200 PV order. Great, so their LRP is processing. It must have been a promotion month, and they got their 200 PV promotion. Month B, 108 PV. Their LRP processed just fine. They probably just adjusted a little bit. Month C, it hasn't actually processed yet. Here in this case, it's probably because their LRP was scheduled for November 18th, and this list was probably printed a few days before that, before November 18th, and as a result, their LRP has not processed yet. So don't panic if you don't see their own personal LRP in the last month. As long as they had it in the 2 previous months, you can see that their PV process, you can see that their order is processing. So what we're looking for again here, for those that are on LRP, is you're looking for that they have a next LRP date, a next LRP PV, and that their orders are processing at least, you can see the 2 last month and the month before, you can see that they've processed already. So that's those that are on LRP. Next, I go through and I highlight those that haven't bought in a long time. Those are really easy, right? You just go through and you can see that the next LRP field or column is blank. The next LRP PV is blank. And their personal volume for the last 3 months is also blank, okay? That's easy. You just go through and highlight those. Next step is you highlight those people who don't have an LRP scheduled, but they do buy product occasionally. So you can see these top 2 people that are highlighted in blue, they don't have an LRP scheduled because the next LRP and the next LRP PV columns are blank. And then if you go and you can see month B for this first one, for Allison Sharp, you can see that she does have an order, and so she does buy a product. And for Jennifer Beckstrand, you can see that occasionally she has 2 orders of 55 PV. So she does buy product, looks like twice in a row, 2 months in a row. Maybe this month she just hasn't gotten to it yet. Even though she's not on an LRP, she is buying product, okay? So that's the 3rd category. And the 4th category, I do, let's say, in yellow, just you pick whatever colors you want. Those people who do have an LRP template. So if you look at the next LRP, you see a date, you look at next LRP PV, you do see a volume, but then you don't see their order processing. So for this one here, the first yellow line, you see that she does have an order of 100 PV in month A, but then in month B, she doesn't. And month B is last month. So obviously her LRP order did not process at all last month, okay? So if something went wrong, either it got on, it expired, or perhaps it declined for whatever reason, okay? If you look at this second yellow line, a couple rows down, you can see that here they have an LRP date, you have an LRP volume, but no LRP PV the last 3 months, okay? So those are our 4 categories. I just do green, red, yellow, blue. And I just divide it out. Oops, I went through a little bit too fast. So that's how I divide up my list. And you do that with each of your people. If you want, you can have those that come to your house and to do this party kind of highlight their own, or you can pre-highlight them for them. I'll leave that up to you. The nice thing about if you pre-highlight them for them is then you're just ready to just dive in and do phone calls right when you get started. All you have to do is just make sure you train them and have them practice their scripts beforehand. The nice thing about having them highlighted, on the other hand, is they learn how to categorize each person, and they're better suited, better able to do these calling trees on their own once their organization gets to be big enough. So let's say they're an elite and they're highlighting their own. Then once they get to be premier or silver, they could be doing these calling trees on their own. All right, so now the next step is to go and call all of these people. So what I have found is that scripts are very, very valuable. You want to have a script so that you don't spend your energy and time trying to figure out what you're going to say to these individuals. You want to be very focused as to what you're telling them when you call them. And that way, you get more power out of each phone call. What I have found for myself, when I don't have a script and I'm on the phone with somebody, half my energy is spent, maybe more, trying to figure out what I'm going to say next. So my focus is taken away from them, and I can't figure out, I can't focus on their intonation and the cues that they're giving me over the phone by the way they're responding to what I'm saying. And that's really, really important. When you're having a conversation with somebody, you're trying to build a relationship with them. You need to be aware of, what's the feedback you're getting from them based off of what you're saying. And when you're face to face with somebody, you can get, these nonverbal body language that we talk about. But when you're on the phone, unfortunately, you don't get the body language. All you can get is the tone of voice or the ahas or just the pauses. And so those nonverbal cues, you just need to pick up on them. And you're much better able to do that if you have a script, so you're not focused on what you're having to say. You can focus more on how they're responding and how you can adjust what you're saying based off of their response. So make sure that you have a script. I will say this. The one downfall of having a script is that you could sound canned or too rehearsed or too dry when you're giving your script. So just make sure that you practice your script well enough so you don't sound like a robot, right? So that you're able to change your intonation, pick up the speed of what you're saying, slow down what you're saying when you need to, when you want to emphasize something or make a point. So just make sure that you vary the tone and you vary the speed so that it sounds natural. But that comes by practicing your script so that you know your script well enough that you can actually say it really naturally. So that being said, I have 4 scripts here that I'd like to go over with you really quickly to finish up this webinar. And those 4 scripts are related to those 4 categories that we just talked about, these 4 colors that you see on the screen. So first of all, people who are on LRP. Second of all, people who buy occasionally, but they're not on LRP. Third, people who have an LRP template set, but it's not processing. And fourth, people who aren't on LRP, nor have they bought anything at all in the last 3 months, so as long as you can tell. So we're going to have a script for each of those 4 categories. The scripts are quite similar, but there are slight variations, and I'd like to go over those variations with you real quick, just so that you can see how to change the script based off of each of these different categories. Now, the script I'm going to be using is targeted towards getting people to have a wellness consult. Again, I told you at the beginning of this webinar, or towards the beginning, that that's one of the most powerful ways to use the calling tree, is to really get as many people to have wellness consults as possible. Now, what do you do if somebody has already had a wellness consult? Who cares? Can they use another one? Sure. I mean, unless there's somebody who you know is a builder and they're constantly buying product, in which case, they might well be somebody who's helping you do these calling trees, right? So then that's not necessary. But if it's a consumer, and even if they had a wellness consult a year ago, 2 years ago, who knows how long ago, another wellness consult might be just what they need to be able to get better use out of their product, to increase their LRP, possibly to give them an opportunity to share or to host a class or to even build a business. So having another wellness consult just gives you a new opportunity to come meet with that person and take things to the next level. So let's go through those scripts. Okay, and again, if you're going to be calling somebody for a promotion, like a 200 PV promotion, you'll have to write your own script. I'm not going to provide you scripts for every possible scenario that you're going to do a calling tree. So this is just one example. From this, you can take this and build it and tweak it to whatever purpose suits you. Just have your script written ahead of time. When you do your party with all of your team members, have them practice the script so they feel comfortable with it, so they're not stumbling through it. And then just go to town. So this first example is people who are purchasing, so they buy product occasionally, but they're not on LRP. So let's just go through the script line by line here, and I'm going to point out some key parts so that you can understand why we do it a certain way, why we do it the way we do. Okay, so hi, this is Patrick. I work in doTERRA. You'll notice that here that I didn't say that I'm a wellness advocate. I didn't say that I'm a distributor. Those words may mean nothing to somebody who's just a consumer, right? So I work in doTERRA just makes it clear enough, all that the message you need to get across. We're actually in the same organization, and I'm part of your support team. Okay, so again, I did not say I'm your upline. People just generally don't get that. Continuing, I was looking in the system, and I noticed that you seem to really enjoy the oils. So when I say I was looking in the system, somebody that's on the other end is probably assuming that I'm in a call center somewhere and I was looking in the computer system and I'm noticing something about their account. Okay, we're all used to this now. When we call customer service, we're used to having people in call centers and looking our account up in the system, whatever the system means. Notice I did not use the words back office or virtual office. That kind of word means nothing to them. I've heard people say the back office before. If you say back office, what are they imagining? They're imagining somebody has an office, and then there's maybe this dark back office that might mean there might be some shady things going on there, or maybe it's the back closet where they have the broom and all the mop and all that kind of stuff. So don't use the word back office. Use the word system. Okay. How do I know that they really seem to enjoy the oils? Well, because I see that they buy them regularly, so I state that. So you seem to really enjoy the oils, you purchase them regularly. And because they buy them regularly, I'm curious. So I say, tell me which oils are your favorite. Okay, that starts a little bit of a conversation. And so you want to use some of your discovery skills. This part here, you might want to fill in with some other conversation based off of what they say. They might say, oh, just like the lady I was describing to you, Zoe, earlier with MS, she might tell you, I have MS, and so I'm using a ton of frankincense, and I'm using a ton of peppermint, I'm using a ton of clove, or whatever, right? So just let them tell their story, and just listen. You might want to ask something like, what got you involved with the essential oils in the first place, right? So just a few ideas for questions you can ask just to kind of discover and see where they're at with the oils. Once you've had that little conversation with them and you feel connected about the oils, you continue on. You say, there's an amazing promotion going on and I didn't want you to miss out on it. It's a promotion that each person who signs up with doTERRA can receive. The best part is that it's absolutely free because you've already earned it. When you sign up with doTERRA, you are eligible to have a wellness consult. Now, maybe they've been in doTERRA already a long time, right? So that's okay. So if they've been in doTERRA for a long time and never had a wellness consult, this is your time to do it. Even if they've had a wellness consult, even if they say maybe, they just say like, hey, I already had a wellness consult. Say, great. We want to make sure that you have everything you need. So here's your opportunity to get another one, right? So whatever. So let's move on with the conversation here. Wellness consults are amazing. Sometimes when people first receive their oils, they're still not quite sure how to use them. At a wellness consult, someone visits with you for half an hour, usually at your home. If that's not possible, then it can be done over the phone. First, we look at what products you already have and what ailments or health goals you want to address. Then, we come up with an exact wellness plan for you and your family to get the most benefit out of the oils you've ordered. Okay, so what we want to emphasize here is they already have the product, so let's get the most benefit out of it. That way, most people don't have an objection with that, right? If we were to say, I want to have a wellness consult with you so that you could buy more product, well, if they're not using the product they have right now, that's not going to be very appealing to them, right? So that's not what we talk about. We want you to get the most benefit out of the products you already have, okay? And fewer people have objections to that, and that way you can schedule a wellness consult and you can truly have the opportunity to help them. Okay, so let's continue. We actually give you a morning, afternoon, and night routine of exactly how you can use your oils to achieve your health goals. The best part is it's free because you are a doTERRA member. Okay, that's really cool. So people love this. Then you could say, I'd love to schedule a time that we can get together. Do you have time blank or blank? Now, obviously, you're not going to say blank. You're going to put in a couple options of times. So you might say, do you have time Wednesday at 10 or Thursday at 6:30 in the evening? That way you offer two times. There's a number of reasons why you want to do this. First of all, if you don't give them an option of two times, people sometimes get overwhelmed and thinking, oh my goodness, when can I do this wellness consult thing that she's wanting me to do? I'm busy. That's just too much to think about. I don't know. And so when people have any kind of confusion or hesitancy in their brain, it's super easy for them to shut down and just say no. That's just always an easy way out. However, if you give them two possible times, like Wednesday at 10 a.m., Thursday at 6:30 p.m., then their brain is just simply, am I available at those two times? And if I'm available at those two times or one of those times, then yeah, that's great. Okay, so then you could schedule something. So much more effective if you give them two opportunities, two available times that they can select from to have this wellness consult. The other thing is, it's more of a subconscious thing. If you just say, when do you have time, and leave it open-ended, subconsciously they're thinking in their mind, oh, you must have all the time in the world. No matter what time I pick, you're available. So that means nobody's really interested in what you're having. Therefore, if nobody's interested, why would I be interested? So you don't want them to have that kind of subconscious logic going on in their brain. You want to have it be, I mean, all of you are busy, right? And I'm sure that not every time is available to them. So you offer two times, and that way they feel like, okay, this person's busy. Here are a couple times. Let's see which one of them works for me best, and they just select one. Now, it's possible that none of those two times that you offer work for them, but if they are interested in the wellness consult, they'll say, well, I can't do either of those times. Then you could offer, well, when does work, and let me see if I can fit it in. And that way they still get the feeling like you're busy subconsciously, right? Like we just discussed. And at the same time, you provide that flexibility to work into their schedule as well. Okay. Now, something that somebody pointed out to me once, interestingly, they said, you want to make the time that you offer not just on the hour, like not just 10 a.m. or 6 p.m., because on the hour is a little bit too obvious, and it still subliminally sends the message like you're still kind of wide open schedule-wise and not in high demand as far as what your products or services that you're offering are. So if you do it on like 10:15 a.m., can I meet with you at 10:15 on Wednesday? Then that feels like, oh, you're really booked. Like you're booking your time to every 15 minutes. And so you could try that, see if that works for you. So like every 15 or 45. So in my scenario, I would say, so do you have time on Wednesday at 10:15 a.m. or Thursday at 6:45 p.m.? And that way you can give a more specific time, gives the impression that you're really busy, and just subconsciously they feel like this is in demand, and they're more likely to pick a time that works for them. Okay, so that's just about the offering two different times. Then you continue on. Let me give you my contact information. If you have any questions, feel free to give me a call. My number is blank and my email is blank. So obviously you provide your contact information to them so that they can take it down and reach out to you if they need to. And then just finally just finish with, I'm looking forward to seeing you at your wellness consult. Maybe you could just confirm the time right there. Okay, so that's the script for people who are buying, but they're not on LRP. Now let's go to people who are on LRP and just see the slight nuance, the slight difference in the script based off of the fact that they are on LRP. So, hi, this is Patrick. I work in doTERRA. We're actually in the same organization, and I'm part of your support team. I was looking in the system, and I noticed that you seem to really enjoy the oils. You purchase them every month. Let me tell you, or tell me which are your favorites. You have the same kind of conversation. What got you involved with the oils, blah, blah, blah. You have that conversation. And then you just insert this phrase. This is the difference between the last script and this one. It's awesome that you're taking advantage of the loyalty rewards program. And then you just continue on, but there's an amazing promotion going on, blah, blah, blah. And the rest of the script is all the same. So I just want to highlight that one sentence. It's awesome that you're taking advantage of the loyalty rewards program. Now, This is simply nothing more, nothing less than an acknowledgement that they are a loyal customer. All of you who have been on a plane, I'm sure you've noticed on the little announcement that they give at the beginning of the flight when they're doing their safety protocol, their safety spiel, they also say, we'd like to welcome all of our medallion members or all of our frequent flyer miles members, whatever their incentive program is, right? Whatever their loyalty program is, they acknowledge those customers, and it's just a little pat on the back, makes them feel warm and fuzzy that they're a customer. So it just reinforces the fact that they're this loyalty rewards member. Okay, so that's what we're trying to do here. Just one little sentence. The whole rest of the script is the same as the previous one. Let's move on to people who are on LRP or have an LRP template rather, but their card is not processing. Now, the beginning part of this script is the same as the first one we went over, right? We don't talk about the LRP at this point because it's not processing, so we don't want to like congratulate them for being on LRP. But after you set up a time for their wellness consults, so if you go down about a little bit past the halfway point in the script where you have these two blank lines for the times that you're offering them to do their wellness consult, you have here, I noticed at one point you had set up a loyalty rewards order. It's still set up in the system, but it's not processing. So this is where the script changes, right? So you're pointing out that they have an LRP template in the system. It's not processing. So I wanted to give you a couple of reasons why it may not have processed in some time. Some people keep waiting for their product and they wonder why it hasn't shipped. So maybe one of the reasons it hasn't shipped is because you have an old or expired credit card on file. What did I not say? I didn't say that their credit card is declining, even though there's a good chance that that's the most likely reason why their card isn't processed. It's because their card declined, right? You don't want to point that out because obviously it's a little bit embarrassing when somebody's card declines. Either they're over the limit or they haven't made their payment or whatever, right? So you don't want to or they have no money in their bank account if it's a debit card. So you don't want to make it embarrassing to them, because if they're embarrassed with you on the phone, the last thing they're going to want to do is have you show up to their house and see them face to face, with them knowing that you know that their card declined. So you have to provide them like an escape valve, like it's not your fault, right? It's the darn card expired, right? It's not your fault. So anyway, so you do not say anything about the fact that their card declined. You just offer some other reason, like that it expired. So maybe one of the reasons it hasn't shipped is because you have an older expired card on file, and once the card is expired, they can't charge that card anymore, and we send you what you want. Or maybe it's just simply a card that you're not using anymore. In any case, so you kind of like offer that quickly and move on. In any case, if it's something you'd like to fix, I can help you with that at your wellness consult. Okay, that way you can take care of them and you open the time where you can do that. Let me give you my contact information. If you have any questions, feel free to give me a call. My number is blah, blah, blah. That's the rest of the script is just like the first one we did. Okay, so I hope that's clear. Here the main difference is you point out that they have been on an RP and that you'd like to fix it, but you make sure that you do not make them embarrassed by saying that their card declined. Let's go to the fourth and last scenario, which is people who haven't ordered in a while. And here basically the key difference is that you don't say at the beginning of the script, you don't say that you notice that they enjoy the product. So let's just look at that real quick. Hi, this is Patrick. I work in doTERRA. We're actually in the same organization and I'm part of your support team. I was looking in the system and I noticed that you haven't ordered in a while, and I wanted to know if you have any questions about the oils. Tell me which kit you purchased and what got you involved with the essential oils in the first place, right? So you want to be able to have that conversation with them again, maybe rekindle in their mind why they got involved. Maybe they've forgotten like some of the reasons why, and like now if they can think about it, yeah, I was really trying to overcome insomnia or whatever. Then you could readdress that and say, well, why did you try the product that you bought? And if they say, no, I didn't know how to use it, then you could say, great, this is what the wellness consult's for when you get into it. Or perhaps they say something like, yeah, I tried the lavender, but it didn't really work for me. And then you could tie into that and say, well, if you're as patient with natural health products like essential oils, If you're as patient with that as you are with medicine that you might get from a doctor, then I'm sure that we could find something that will work for you. And you just offer, there's other products that can be just as helpful or more helpful. So it just opens that opportunity for you to have a conversation, for you to really get into having a good wellness consult with them. Okay, so let me just repeat that. Here's the difference. I was looking in the system and I noticed that you haven't ordered in a while, and I wanted to know if you have any questions about the oils. Tell me which kit you purchased and what got you involved with the essential oils, and just have a good conversation with them. Okay. The rest of the script is the same as the first one, where you talk about the wellness consult, offer a couple times, schedule it, give them your contact information, and move on. Okay. Keep it short and sweet. Doesn't have to be too complicated. These are your 4 scripts that you would use. Now, I'm sure that you could take this information and adjust it for if you're doing a 200 PV promotion, or if you're calling because of an event or whatever. You can just make your own script, practice it, get comfortable with it, use it, and call the people. Okay, so that's what a calling tree is. We talked about why you'd want to do a calling tree. We talked about how important it is, how you have gold in your organization. We talked about some of the nuts and bolts about how you divide your list, how often you'd want to do them, and scripts that you would use to make these calls. Okay, so take this information and go do calling trees regularly in your organization. Get that volume boosted up. Find those gold nuggets, those people who aren't on LRP who now will get on LRP, people who haven't been sharing product who start sharing, people who haven't ever hosted a class but now might host a class or two, even though they're not going to be a builder, or maybe even people who become builders. This is a great source of volume in your organization. You will be amazed when you do this regularly, consistently. You'll be amazed at the dividends that this will pay. It'll be an awesome thing for your organization. Okay? Good luck, and hope to see you soon.